For all the golf fans out there that don't like LIV and can't wait for it to go away, I have some bad news for you because it appears that now LIV will be here to stay well beyond 2024. Contrary to what you watch on TV and what you're hearing from some of the mainstream golf news that LIV may not exist at all signs point to that it will be here well past 2024. We've already heard reports in the media and from LIV players that LIV is 100% on for the 2024 season, but beyond that, it's been murky. Nobody really knows what's going on. Well, what I saw this week tells me it's here for the long haul. For those unfamiliar with LIV, Arlo White is the play-by-play voice of LIV Golf. He's the English guy with that incredible voice who also does English Premier League football games. He's done MLS soccer, along with being the voice of the TV series Ted Lasso. Well, Arlo tweeted out this week a picture of him and LIV Golf CEO Greg Norman standing on a small stage in New York City with a quote that says, "We had a fantastic afternoon at the LIV Golf League upfronts in NYC today, engaging with potential partners, sponsors, as we get our stall out for 2024 and 2025. I'm thrilled to be a part of this journey, and we're just getting started, !, hashtag LIV Golf." So that's Arlo White, the main play-by-play guy for LIV. So for those of you non-show business folks out there that don't know what an upfront is, here's an explanation I pulled from online. The TV advertising upfront is an annual period of time in which advertisers and their agencies negotiate and sign year-long deals with TV networks as well as connected TV platform and streaming service owners to commit to spend an agreed-upon amount of money to buy ads on the latter companies, traditional TV networks, and or streaming properties. The term upfront or upfronts is also used to refer to the presentation that TV networks, CTV platforms, and streaming services host to pitch their programming and add products to advertisers and agencies. But really, these presentations are just the most public expression of the TV advertising upfront cycle. So that's the explanation of what an upfront is. So there you have it. LIV Golf in New York City, in the media capital of the United States, perhaps the world, pitching LIV to major TV networks and major advertisers. Well, many detractors out there might say, well, yeah, Greg Norman is going to do that, but he's getting pushed out eventually, so who cares? Well, if you just saw Arlo White's tweet about the upfront, I think he might be reasonable. You know, obviously Greg's got a motivation to keep pushing LIV. Maybe some others don't. Arlo certainly doesn't. However, later that night, I was on LinkedIn, which is the professional network, and I saw a post from a guy named Will Stager, who I follow. He is the chief media officer for LIV Golf. He posts some interesting tidbits about LIV, including this one. So Will posted a picture of himself on the exact same stage that Arlo White and Greg Norman were on, with the caption that reads, quote, "Fantastic overall presentation by our squad at the LIV Golf League 2024-2025 upfronts today at NYC. Our exec team walked through our schedule, product, and growth plans for the upcoming 2024 and 2025 LIV Golf seasons with some help from Arlo White. David Faraday is one of the major players with LIV, and special appearances from Dustin Johnson, Cam Smith, Taylor Gooch, Bryson DeChambeau, and Bubba Watson, and Phil Mickelson and Ian Poulter on tape." So the first bunch of guys were there in person. Phil and Ian Poulter were on tape. And then Will continues, "Next event at Greenbrier in West Virginia, August 4th, !, and then unquote. So that's Will Stager, the chief media officer for LIV, also echoing kind of the stuff that Arlo White was tweeting with him and Greg Norman, but also named all the big-time talent were there. So also in New York City, attending these upfronts were the A-list players of LIV Golf in person. As mentioned, Dustin Johnson, Cameron Smith, Bryson DeChambeau, Bubba Watson, and Taylor Gooch, all in person in New York City, and then video messages from Phil Mickelson and Ian Poulter, who obviously had prior scheduled engagements. So that's also another reason you can't say, oh, they're forced to be there in their contracts, because, well, if they're all forced to be there in their contracts, Mickelson and Poulter would have had to drop whatever they're doing and be there. So that's how you can see this is kind of a little bit more voluntary. These guys are willing to sell LIV Golf. So LIV had their A-list guys come into New York City to speak with the TV and advertising execs to assure them that, yes, they're committed to playing on LIV and to get on board now with, different TV deals and advertising rights. So, for those familiar, prior to working in media, I was an agent at the biggest music agency in the country, producing concerts for Grammy and Juno winning bands. I represented the A list and some B and C list artists of hip hop, R&B, and pop, and some electronic music DJs as well. Did that for 20 years. So many of the major US agencies I dealt with on a daily basis for close to 20 years, including William Morris Endeavor, CAA, which is Creative Artist Agency, ICM, which is International Creative Management, a few others as well. They all have music divisions and they have sports divisions to their agency. So William Morris, CAA, ICM have both music and sports. So I have intimate knowledge of the inner workings of William Morris Endeavor, ICM, CAA, and a bunch of others. I know some agents. I know how they work. I know how they think. And I know how they plan for their talent, whether it's a singer or a pro golfer. How do I know? Because I was one of them for 20 years, okay? The biggest agency in Canada. And I dealt with all of those companies daily for 2 decades. So all the agencies I mentioned have offices in New York City. I've been to the William Morris offices in New York City. If you've ever seen Seinfeld, when they show a grayish black tall skyscraper that is supposed to be what's called Penn and Publishing, which is the office that Elaine Bennis works. Well, that's 1325 Avenue of the Americas, New York, which is also known as 6th Avenue, right in Manhattan. That address is actually the head offices for William Morris Endeavor. I've been in this building for meetings. I know it. I was kind of a buzz. I used to watch Seinfeld for years, and I walked out and I'm like, that's Penn and Publishing. No, it's William Morris Agency's office. And so I'm assuming at that time, probably Seinfeld or Larry David were represented by William Morris, and that's why they use that building. But all those agencies, they represent, musicians, athletes, actors, writers, producers, everything. And I've got pretty good knowledge of how they work and what the mindset of these agents. And I can tell you with 1,000% confidence, there is zero chance in hell the agents and managers of guys like DJ, Phil, Cam, Bubba, Bryson, etc. would allow their clients to show up to these upfronts and pitch TV execs and advertisers if they hadn't been assured with 100% certainty that LIV will be in existence long term beyond 2025. Agents have the most fragile of egos in the entertainment industry, and there is no way they'd allow big time clients to humiliate themselves by participating in something that would be a farce, because it could ruin their relationships with those TV execs and advertisers for everything else they're doing, as well as for other agents in the building. So if a sports agent messes up and does something stupid, that could trickle down and say, oh, he's a William Morris guy. It could affect their music clients, their acting clients. And so that's why have 1,000% certainty there's no way the agents would allow these guys to go there if this wasn't happening. None of those big time players I just mentioned would be at the upfronts unless there was a set in stone plan in place for LIV long term and their agents and managers have been assured. Well, those upfronts would never have happened unless LIV is here to stay. It's one thing for Greg Norman to be out here trying to keep selling LIV, but it's another thing when you have all the A-list players in conjunction with their big-time agents all in cahoots and saying, go ahead. So a few, go to these upfronts in New York, fly to New York, first of all, and then go to the upfronts. So a few of the guys I mentioned, DJ Cam, Bob, all the way, some of them are represented by a company called Wasserman. And a guy named Bud Martin. Bud is one of the super agents in golf, if not the biggest agent. He's certainly one of them. And they have offices in Brooklyn, New York. So they're not letting some of their most important clients come to NYC and waste their time. It's just not happening. So these LIV TV upfronts are a big deal, which means the TV upfronts are hands down the biggest telltale sign that LIV Golf is here to stay. Also, if it wasn't, by now you'd hear guys planning their LIV exit strategy and planting little tidbits in the media by saying things like, yeah, I miss playing at such and such an event because it meant something to me. You would see that now. If guys knew, this LIV thing's falling apart, I got to start jumping ship. I got to start planning my exit. But you're not hearing any of that. Find me a single quote or audio clip from any LIV player, anyone, that says anything besides, I'm happy where I'm playing and I can't wait to do it again next year. They're all echoing the same thing. If they knew LIV was going somewhere falling apart, you'd see guys looking to save face with carefully planned media talking points, but there is absolutely none of that. None of it. I haven't heard any of it. I've heard a few of the European guys not happy they can't play some of the DP Tour events, but I haven't heard a single guy upset that he can't play the 3M Open or the RBC Canadian Open for that matter. Not one. Okay, so obviously, I think some of the European guys, it's just more convenient for them having to fly, to the United States or to Australia, Singapore for some of those events. I think, just dip, when you're in Europe, I mean, it's a 5-minute flight wherever you want. If you're in London, it's a 10-minute flight to Germany, so on Spain. You can kind of just hop around. And so I think more just for the convenience of it, some of those European guys miss playing the DB Tour events and also some of the history of it. But either way, I haven't heard a single guy say he wants back on the PGA Tour. Just this weekend, the great Phil Mickelson responded to a tweet claiming LIV guys will be sanctioned if they want to return to the PGA Tour when he said, quote, "What a colossal waste of time. Not a single player on LIV wants to play PGA Tour. It would require a public apology and restitution to LIV players for paying millions to clout media to disparage all of us. A better topic is future sanctions for the many players who now come to LIV." So Mickelson right there, just this weekend on Twitter saying, look, none of us are going back. There's going to be guys that want to come here, but none of us want to go there. And all of this is a clear indication of LIV being around for the long haul.